Thank you for coming. Can you hear me okay in the back? You can? If you have trouble hearing, just wave your arms. I won't see you, but you'll get good aerobic exercise. Okay, first a little bit of an apology, although I've now written 14 books and have done research for the National Institutes of Health on diet and diabetes. The fact is, I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota, and my whole family was in the cattle business. My grandfather was a cattle rancher. My uncles and cousins are still in that business. My dad grew up on a cattle ranch. And every day of my life, I ate roast beef, baked potatoes, and corn. Except for special occasions when it was roast beef, baked potatoes, and peas. But I'm very grateful to my father for hating the cattle business. He got out of it, and he went to medical school, and then spent time in the Army and was in Germany for a while, and came back and stopped in Boston where he studied at the Joslin Center, and moved then to Fargo, North Dakota, and was the resident diabetes expert for that whole area. But he often described diabetes as being a rather thankless condition, where we have more and more complications, more and more medications, and we're waiting for that one good idea. And I think we've found a major turning point in our approach to this condition. I'd like to share this with you now. It started out, I was sitting at my desk one day in Washington. 22 years ago, I started an organization called Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Are some of you PCR members, by the way? Thank you for your support. We appreciate it very much. And as you know, we promote preventive medicine, especially good nutrition. We do clinical trials. We conduct research, but we also advocate for higher standards in research. That means we oppose unethical human studies, but it also means we vigorously promote alternatives to animal use in research. And I have toxicologists on staff who do that kind of thing. And the phone rang one day, and it was a woman who was the executive director of a diabetes foundation in Virginia. She said, "I'm tired of doing research on mice and rats. It's not really helping very much, and could we do some more human-oriented research and more nutrition-oriented research?" She invited me to work with them to design some research trials. And the first one that we did took a very different view of the kinds of diets that people need for diabetes. First, just to get on the same page, diabetes is a condition where there's too much sugar in the blood. The sugar is glucose. And glucose is not poison. It's supposed to be in your bloodstream on the way to get into the cells of the body where it acts as fuel. Glucose powers your muscles. Glucose powers your brain. You know, if a person is going to run a marathon, they carbo load. You know what I'm talking about? They eat lots of rice and lots of bread and lots of pasta. They're trying to get glucose into the system. It goes into the muscle cells, it goes into the liver, and it's stored. So glucose is a good thing. The problem is in diabetes, it's not going into the cells, it's staying outside. It's circulating around in the blood over and over and over again. And it can damage the blood vessels, the tiny blood vessels at the back of your eye. They're attacked by high levels of glucose. The heart is attacked by glucose. The kidneys have blood vessels coursing through them, and they're attacked by this high blood sugar. And you have nerves going all the way down to your feet, and those nerves are nourished by blood vessels, and they're attacked also. So diabetes is a leading cause of loss of vision, loss of kidney function, abnormal nerve symptoms and nerve pain, and you have a 65 or 75% chance of having a fatal heart attack. That's the bad news. The good news is that there's a lot that we can do about this, and I'll share that with you. Now, so many people imagine if there's too much sugar in the blood, don't eat sugar. And don't eat anything that turns to sugar, like white bread or starches. You know what I'm talking about. This is typical diabetes advice, right? Well, if you look around the world, those populations that eat the most starch, I'm talking about rural Japan. What's the dietary staple in Japan?
Rice.
They're eating rice all day long. There's lots of carbohydrate. And yet they have much less diabetes in Japan than if a person moves from Japan to Vancouver or Seattle or Chicago or Vero Beach. Their risk of diabetes goes up 400%. They are no longer eating rice. They start eating cheeseburgers and cheese pizza and fried chicken, and they get more diabetes. Carbohydrate is not the cause, and it never was the cause of diabetes. And a low-carbohydrate diet is very limited in what it'll do for this condition. You know that's true. If you look within this country, vegetarians have less diabetes than non-vegetarians. So our first diet trial, we used a vegetarian diet. We used a vegan diet. Now, vegans are not people from the planet Vegas. A vegan diet means totally vegetarian. No meat, no dairy, no eggs. And we also kept oils really low. And we compared that to a diet following the American Diabetes Association guidelines. And you know what that is. It's don't eat too much carbohydrate. Try to keep the carbohydrate fairly stable from day to day. Don't eat too much fat. And if you need to lose weight, cut calories. Well, we did a head-to-head test. The vegans won hands down. Their blood sugars dropped more, their weight dropped more, their cholesterols dropped more, and despite the fact that it was a small pilot study, the results were significant, and so we published them in 1999 in a journal called Preventive Medicine. We then did another study. I wanted to investigate what this diet does inside the body. So I brought in a group of women. Everyone was after menopause. Everyone had moderate to severe weight problems, and they were all feeling stuck. Like, I've tried every diet. You do low carb, low calorie, this and that, and the other thing. And they weren't really getting lasting results. So we brought them in, same diet, vegan, low fat. So when I say vegan, no animal products. Breakfast might be a big bowl of oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins. If you want to have sausage, it's got to be the vegetarian type sausage. Lunchtime, if you're going to have soup, it's not going to be the chicken noodle. It would be vegetable soup or split pea or lentil soup or something like that. If we're at an Italian restaurant, pasta is okay, but it would be not the Alfredo sauce or a meat sauce, but a marinara sauce. Keeping oils low. That's the whole diet. No exercise was allowed because exercise is good, but we're zeroing in on the effective diet. So the group of women came in, they started the diet, and they lost weight. About 1 pound per week, week after week after week after week, which is impressive. Their cholesterol levels fell. So why were they losing weight? Well, we found why. The first reason is the diet is very low in fat. If it's vegan, how much chicken fat is in my diet? None. How much beef fat? None, right? There's no animal fat at all. And if it's also low in oil, there's not much of any kind of fat. And here's why that matters. And this will be on the test. Every gram of fat, a gram is not much, it's a 1/28 of an ounce. Every gram of fat has 9 calories. Every gram of carbohydrate, whether it's from bread or pasta or you name it, has only 4 calories. So fats have 9, carbohydrates have 4. If I take the fat pretty much out of the diet, there's just not so many calories there. You're not eating calorie-dense foods. That's reason number one. Reason number two is their diets are really high in fiber. Now, fiber is the most boring word that I have in this whole lecture. But fiber is your friend. Fiber means plant roughage. And so if you eat beans and vegetables and fruits, fiber fills you up, but it has almost no calories. I want to give you some numbers. If I go out on the sidewalk and I grab your average person, they're getting about 12 grams of fiber per day. That's not very much. That's because yogurt and skim milk and chicken breast and cheese and meat are not plants. They have 0 fiber. Okay, they're getting about 12 grams of fiber per day from whatever plant material they do eat. And your average person is consuming maybe 2,000 calories a day as a round number. Every 14 grams of fiber I add to the diet cuts 10% off your calorie intake. Here's what I mean. I take that person eating 12 grams of fiber per day. If I can push them up to, add 14, up to 26, they will feel full sooner. And they eat about 200 calories less the next day. Here's what I do. I say, tomorrow, have an apple. Or any other fruit. I don't care, apple, orange, whatever. That's got about 3 grams of fiber. Have a vegetable serving. Broccoli, spinach, carrots, you name it, whatever you like. That's got 4. So what am I up to? I'm up to 7. Have a half a cup of beans. That's got another 7. So I've got my 14. If today you ate 2,000 calories, and tomorrow you have 1 fruit serving, 1 vegetable serving, 1 bean serving, you will not eat 2,000 calories. An average person will eat 1,800. You will swear you ate as much as before, but when I measure it, when I weigh it out, you're actually getting about 10% less. The next day, let's have 2 fruits. Let's have 2 vegetables. Let's have beans at 2 meals. You're not eating 1,800 calories anymore. Now you're closer to 1,600. You'll swear you're eating the same amount, but there's something wrong with your scale. It's going down and down and down. Your belt line feels looser and looser and looser. It's not rocket science. All it is the fiber fills you up. It's got almost no calories. You feel full. You feel stuffed. You feel satisfied. But your calorie count is less. The third thing, I sent everybody to the laboratory. I laid them down on a table and I put a mask over their mouth and nose. I measured their oxygen intake. The reason I did that is that tells me how fast they are burning calories. You know how a person will say, well, I'm gaining weight. I must have a slow metabolism. I must be burning calories slowly. That's true for many people. But I can measure it. So I measure that. If you're taking in a lot of oxygen, you've got a fast metabolism. If you're not using a lot of oxygen, you've got a slow metabolism. After I measure it, I give everybody a test meal. The meal is 2 cans of Boost. Have you ever seen this? It's a liquid. It's like Ensure. It used to be called Sustacal. They drink it down at 720 thankless calories. And then I put the mask back on, and I measure their metabolism again. And did you know this? After a meal, your metabolism rises a little bit. Because you're digesting, you're absorbing nutrients. They're going into your cells. Some of the nutrients are being burned up. Everybody goes on their diet. 14 weeks later, they come back in the laboratory. They lie down again. I put the mask on. I check their metabolism. I give them the same 2 cans of Boost. And we found something really remarkable. Their bodies were not the same. Their after-meal calorie burn was about 20% higher than it had been before. Same person, same location, same meal, but they are burning calories faster. That could account for why they lose weight, but why is this happening? I sent them back to the lab for one more test, a glucose tolerance test. Anybody have one? Thankless test. You drink 75 grams of glucose in a syrup, and then you get stuck in the arm. We measure your glucose level and your insulin level. That shows us how long does it take for the sugar to go into the cells of the body and get out of the blood. And that gave us our answer. We found that by being on the vegan diet, after they had Boost or any other food, their body absorbed the nutrients went from the blood into the cells significantly more rapidly, meaning they had more insulin sensitivity. Are you with me so far? The reason they were losing weight is partly because there was less fat in the diet, and fat has how many calories per gram? 9, you're right. There was more carbohydrate, which is only 4. They also had more fiber, so they were full sooner, but they had a better calorie burn after every meal. After they ate breakfast or lunch or dinner, the nutrients from the foods went into the cells faster to be burned up and liberated as body heat, rather than stored as fat. We call that the thermic effect of food. Everyone has some, but on a vegan diet, you have a measurable increase. It's not huge, it's a little, but you get it for about 3 hours after breakfast, 3 hours after lunch, 3 hours after dinner. We'll take it, it's good. So, if nutrients are getting into their cells, if glucose is getting into the cells, if glucose is getting out of the blood into the cells, this ought to be a really good diet for diabetes. And so, starting in 2003, the National Institutes of Health funded my research group to do a study comparing a diet that's vegan, low fat, and low glycemic index, that's the package, against the ADA diet. Glycemic index, you know this? This is rating different kinds of carbohydrate for whether they cause your blood sugar to spike high or not so high. Like white bread causes a big spike in your blood sugar. Beans don't do that. Everybody comes in. We had 99 participants. Half of them get the ADA diet, half of them get the vegan diet. And let me describe a case to you. There was a man named Vance. Vance was a retired Washington, D.C. policeman, but he was not an old man. His grandfather died at 30. Vance was 31 when he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Came in, and to give you an idea of his numbers, do you know about hemoglobin A1C? That's the main measure for your control. If I check your blood sugar right now, that tells me your blood glucose at the time I do the test. If I check your A1C, that gives me an average over about a 3-month period. It's a good measure of control. It should be below 7, or as close to 6 as possible, really. And Vance was not good. My average person in the study was at about 8. It's not good control. Vance was 9.5. And he said, well, I eat barbecue, I eat chicken wings, I'm not really paying much attention to my diet. Well, he jumped in, he did the vegan diet. He made old-fashioned oatmeal, and he liked vegan soup, said he would have a chili that would be vegan, whatever. Did fine with it. His A1C dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. He lost 60 pounds over about a year's time. And his A1C had been 9.5, was down to 5.3. His doctor said, I can't justify keeping you on medication anymore. Imagine what that feels like. To have family members lose their feet or lose their vision, and to see yourself with this diagnosis, and to have a prescription get higher and higher and higher, and to have suddenly the numbers go the other way, and to have your doctor say, let's stop. It's a wonderful thing. And it's not, let me give you another case. These are real people. These are not composites, and Vance is his real name. A woman named Nancy came into the study. She was 60 years old. She was on 2 medicines. She was on metformin and a sulfonylurea drug, like glipizide or glyburide. And very rapidly we had to stop one of her drugs. And she lost about 40 pounds. And she started ratcheting down and down and down on the second drug. The last time I talked to her, she was on 250 milligrams of metformin twice a day. That's a baby dose, basically, very small. And she was in dramatically better control. Her A1C was in the low 6s. But a couple months into the study, she said, I had the most remarkable experience last night. I said, what was that? I was cooking, and I got down all my jars, and I opened all of my jars up, and I was preparing dinner. And my friend said, Nancy, you just opened up all those jars. She had really bad rheumatoid arthritis. She had always asked other people, can you crack open? You know what I'm talking about. If you've got arthritis, you have this terrible grinding pain here at the base of your thumb and in your other fingers. And you're not cracking open a jar at all. You get somebody else to do that for you. You don't shake a person's hand. You're worried about that. She hadn't noticed it. It gradually went away. And that shocked her. It did not shock me. Because I wrote a book some years ago called Foods That Fight Pain, where I described the evidence that arthritis in some people is linked to food. Not everybody gets better, but about half of people have an identifiable diet trigger for it. Dairy products is the most common one, and there are others too. In her diet, it was vegan. There's no dairy products at all. Her arthritis went away. I'll give you one more case. A man named Selwyn was from Trinidad. He had had diabetes for 20 or 21 years. And he had a complication called neuropathy. Neuropathy is the nerves are attacked. And this is not fun. The good kind of neuropathy is numbness, where you can't feel things anymore. The bad kind, I mean, good in quotes. The really bad one is pain, where the nerves start sending burning sensations up to your brain. And Selwyn said that night after night, he would have this painful burning that comes, and it's associated with depression, and there's no drug that reliably makes this go away. Anyway, he came into the study, and he was on insulin, and his insulin doses came down and down and down. His blood sugar got under much better control. He wasn't overweight. He didn't need to lose weight, and he didn't really lose much weight. But about 6 months into the study, he said to me, my neuropathy is gone. I said, let me make sure I understand. You've done the vegan diet. You've done really well. You're on less insulin, but your blood glucose is best control it's been for a long time. And your neuropathy has improved a lot. He said, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's gone. And that did not surprise me either, because in the late 1980s, a researcher named Milton Crane in California tested a vegan diet along with exercise. Now, I don't use exercise in my studies, because as much as I like exercise, I'm isolating the effect of diet alone for scientific purposes. So we don't change activity levels at all. But Milton Crane said, he brought in 21 people, everyone had painful neuropathy, and he said, do a vegan diet and regular, vigorous exercise every day. And out of 21 people, 17 were pain-free in 2 weeks. The other 4 had a partial improvement, so it's not perfect, but it's great. It's the best treatment that we have for it. Now, at this point, you might be saying, okay, I'll believe it works, but can't I have a little salmon every now and then? Do I really have to do this vegan diet all the time? Do I have to get a tie-dyed shirt? Do I have to change my philosophy? Do I have to acquire a taste for folk music? What's this about? Well, there is actually one safe way that you can prepare salmon so it won't hurt you. Here's what you do. You get a not very big cut of salmon and cook it thoroughly. And once it's cooked, cut it into bite-sized pieces and then put it on a small saucer or a small dish and put it on the floor and call your cat over to eat it. Because your cat is a carnivore, your cat won't be hurt at all. But you're a primate, you can't eat it. You know, a lot of people do ask me about fish. They say fish has good fat in it, doesn't it? I mean, that should be all right. Fish has good fat, but you know what? Your waistline stores good fat just like bad fat. It weighs the same. In fact, it has how many calories per gram?
9.
Exactly. It's called good fat. Omega-3s interfere with clotting. They have an anti-inflammatory effect. But fish has bad fat also. All fats are mixtures. You take any fish in the store, 15 to 30% of the fat is plain old saturated fat, just like you can get in a pig or a cow. And there is sort of a similar amount of omega-3. And people who have trouble losing weight on what they think is a healthy diet, one of the first things I want to do is take that salmon out of their diet. Chinook salmon is 50% fat. And so many people are carrying their good fat over to the bathroom scale in the morning wondering what the problem is. Okay. Many people imagine, well, if I'm not eating red meat, let's say I eat more white meat, I ought to be doing okay. Let's eat chicken. Well, here are the bad numbers. The leanest beef my Uncle Harold can raise is 29% fat as a percentage of calories. The leanest chicken is about 23. That's without the skin, without the dark meat. A bean is 4% fat. Broccoli is about 8. Rice is 1 to 5. And they don't have cholesterol, whereas chicken, fish, beef, they've all got cholesterol. So I cannot reverse your diabetes. I can't improve it if you go from beef to chicken. Americans now eat, believe it or not, 1 million chickens per hour. Slightly more than that. Americans, the actual numbers from the USDA are about 9 billion per year. And if you work that out, it's slightly more than 1 million per hour. We imagine this to be healthy food. We're in the worst shape we've ever been in. And from the chicken standpoint, it's a bad idea too. So, all right, if you want to try this, but you're thinking, well, how will it work? I want to just give you some tips on how I introduce a person to this kind of diet. The first tip I have is don't change your diet. Take a little time to just try out your possibilities before you change your diet. So take a couple weeks and look at the recipes. I've got lots of recipes in my book, and I have many other books too, and they don't overlap, but there are other authors who have really good recipes too, like John and Mary McDougall or Dean Ornish's books. There's lots of others. Try your recipes, and you don't need like 35 recipes. You need 5 or 6 that you like. Now, let's say you have the room service gene. I have that gene very badly. I cannot cook at all. I have no patience for cooking. Life is too short. I'm never going to cook. So I'm going to walk you through convenience foods that you can eat. Or if you're going to a restaurant, you'll figure that out. Take a couple weeks, just figure it out. An Italian place, they'll serve you pasta marinara. A Chinese place has lots of vegetable dishes which you can eat with the rice. Yes, you can eat it with the rice. Get brown rice if they've got it. If they don't, eat the white rice. It beats the socks off Spam. If you're at a Japanese restaurant, don't have the fish sushi unless you're very well insured. But you can have the vegetable sushi and the miso soup and the salads and things. If you're at a Mexican restaurant, skip the meat taco, have the bean burrito. Hold the cheese. That goes for Taco Bell if you want to. I'm not saying it's the pinnacle of culinary art, but it's okay. A man called me up. I was on a radio station in Los Angeles. The man was in Mobile, Alabama. His name was Bill. And he was a truck driver, and he called into the radio station. He says, I'm on insulin 3 times a day. I'm not in good control. I can't really control what I eat. I said, well, where do you eat? He said, Taco Bell, Burger King, and whatnot. And I said, well, have the veggie burger, and at Taco Bell, have the bean burrito. And at a grocery store, they got a salad bar there. And it's not just lettuce, it's 3-bean salad and chickpeas. Load up on that, put that in the cab of your truck, buy some oatmeal, old-fashioned oatmeal, and a glass bowl. And just microwave it. 3 minutes, it's ready. Okay, he said, I'll try it. 2 weeks later, I'm back at my desk in Washington. Phone rings. It's the same radio station. He said, can you go on the air right now? I got Bill on the line. And Bill said, this is the most amazing thing. I woke up this morning, my blood sugar was 62. If you don't know those numbers, that's low. And I said, well, Bill, I'm delighted, but I'd like you to call your doctor because you need much less insulin. He said, oh, I did that last week. His blood sugar plummeted right away. And it was already too low, and he needed less and less and less medicine. Now, part of the reason I say this is I want to encourage you to give it a try. The other reason is I want to warn you. We're not fooling around. This is a serious diet. And if you're on serious medicines that have been endeavoring to push your blood sugar down, and suddenly your diet gets out of the way, your blood sugar can really fall. Now, if you're on diet alone, or if you're on metformin alone, or if you're on Actos alone, these are medicines that will not likely cause hypoglycemia. But if you're on insulin, or if you're on a sulfonylurea, this means glipizide, glyburide, glimepiride, you're going to become hypoglycemic. Very likely. Now, this is not bad. This is good news. You'll be happy when it happens, but I want you to be prepared. And by being prepared, tell your doctor before you start the diet that you're making a big diet change, and keep your doctor's number handy. Keep glucose tablets around or something else in case you get shaky, so that you can take you can take them to bring your sugar back up temporarily. My book has a whole section on hypoglycemia. Read that. Have a glucose monitor and check yourself, because you're not going to. People come into my studies and they say, my blood sugar is never going to be too low. It's always too high. I say, just wait when you do this. Now, for some people it doesn't happen, but for most people it does. So it's not a bad thing. Just be ready for it, okay? The other thing is take a multiple vitamin. You'll get plenty of protein from vegetables. I'm talking about beans, grains, vegetables, fruits. You'll get adequate protein. You'll get plenty of calcium from green leafy vegetables and beans. But vitamin B12 is something that you need for healthy nerves and healthy blood. There are not a lot of vegan sources. There are some. Nutritional yeast, fortified cereals, but you're probably ignoring those foods. So a multiple vitamin covers you for that. And frankly, your nutrition is going to be much better on a vegan diet because of all the vegetables and fruits and beans and fiber that you're getting, okay? All right, so I've done my first step. I've figured out my restaurants, or I've figured out my recipes. I even figured out what I could get at a fast food joint. I think I'm ready to try it. So now, step 2 is take it for a 3-week test drive. Not forever, just 3 weeks. But during these 3 weeks, don't stick your toe in the swimming pool and think, well, I'll try it a little bit. I'll have a healthy meal on Tuesday and one on Saturday and one the following. No, don't do that. Do it every meal, every day for 3 weeks. Even if you get an obstacle, like you got invited to Outback Steakhouse, you do it there. They've got a vegetable plate for you. Why do I say this? First of all, it's a great learning experience to see how to eat healthy, even in the face of life's challenges. Secondly, you're going to feel what it's like to be on a healthy diet. You're going to see your weight start to come down. Your blood sugar get better. Your blood pressure is coming down. If you've got a monitor, check that too. Your cholesterol is starting to come down. It's not all the way, but it's coming. And the third thing is, your tastes will change. Did any of you ever switch from whole milk to skim milk? Let me see your hand. Okay, when you did, almost everybody. When you did, what was the skim milk like at first? It tastes watery, and it doesn't even look right, does it? Kind of blue? All right. As time went on, did things change?
Yes.
What? What happened? You got used to it? Did you get used to it? Okay. Did you ever go back and taste whole milk again?
Yes.
What was that like? It's too thick. It's almost like paint. Well, wait a minute. Your whole life, it was perfectly fine until you take a couple weeks off, and your tastes have changed. Now you know this is true. You will never go back. Well, what if for 3 weeks you lighten up the whole diet and you do a vegan diet for 3 weeks? Go back and have a double bacon cheeseburger. You'll discover it's not the joyful experience you remembered. And your taste will have changed, your outlook will have changed, but that will never happen if you don't actually allow yourself to experience it. Most people go their whole lives never having even a week on the foods that their bodies were designed for. Give it 3 and see what happens. At the end of that time, if you don't like it, you can go back to the foods that caused your illness. Or you can stay on a regimen that helps lead you toward health. All right, my last tip is this. If you want, I have a little skyhook for you, or what I call transition foods, the fake meats that they have at this. Have you seen these? They've got fake deli slices of bologna and turkey and chicken that's actually made of soy or wheat derivatives. I really learned the value of these from my mother. My mom lives in Fargo, North Dakota, lives with my father, and she had a very high cholesterol level for a long time, and she would not pay any attention to the advice that I kept giving her. And in fact, I finally figured out why. I'm her third-born child. And any of you third-borns? Okay. This is true. And parents, if you've got 3 or 4 kids, you know this is true too. If you open up the family photo album, there's lots of pictures of the first one. There's some pictures of the second one. To find the third one, you got to look in the index. And what I mean to say is your parents love you, but they pay no attention to anything that you are saying. So I was telling my mom she has hypercholesterolemia. She's got atherosclerosis. She thought it was cute I knew big words, but she was paying zero attention to any advice I was giving her. Finally, she wouldn't listen to me. She listens to her own doctor who says, Mrs. Barnard, you're in trouble. I'm going to write you a prescription. She says, okay, what is it? It's a cholesterol-lowering drug. Okay, how long do I have to take it for? He said, you don't understand what I'm saying. I want you to take this drug every day for as long as you live. She said, what? I'm going to take this drug forever? What kind of drug is this? She says, I'm going to think this through. I got to go home. She walks home. She picks up a book I wrote called Food for Life. And Neil told me that if I make these recipes, my cholesterol level ought to fall. My mom does it. She becomes a vegan. And she really does it every meal, every day for about 6 or 7 weeks. She goes back to see the doctor. The doctor draws a blood sample and sends it off. And when it comes back, he brings the slip into the room. And he apologizes to her. He says, our laboratory isn't working correctly. Because this is a totally normal cholesterol. Nobody's cholesterol could drop 70 points in this short period of time. And he wants to reschedule for her to come back when the laboratory is fixed. And she said, wait a minute, just so I understand, if that was actually my cholesterol, would I need drugs? He said, no, this is a totally normal cholesterol. That's what I'm saying. This can't be true. She says, I think I get it. Thanks a lot. She goes home, picks up the phone, calls me up and says, Neil, why didn't you tell me about this before? My mom's finally got religion. She's decided this vegan diet is a thing. She wants the whole world to follow a vegan diet, starting with my father. So my dad, he grew up on a cattle ranch, and that's his whole kind of pattern, except for one thing. He has a great advantage that every man in his generation has. He doesn't know where the kitchen is. He doesn't cook. He doesn't shop for food. He doesn't put food on plates. He just sits at the table, and when he's hungry, the food arrives. And when he's done, the plates go. And if you hang around 3 or 4 more hours, it starts again. And this has been the system. So my mom is taking total advantage of this. She goes to the health food store, she buys a good bread, and a little Dijon mustard, and some Italian plum tomatoes. She slices them up thin, puts them on the bread, with some lettuce and some phony bologna. It's not real bologna, which you would never eat if you saw what is actually in there. But she gets the soy or wheat derivative type bologna. She gives it to him. She gives him all these fake meats. She'll give him hot dogs, which are made of soy. And which, by the way, are a handy thing. If you've got kids coming over and it's a birthday time, you don't want to give them real hot dogs because you know what's in them. And you definitely don't want to serve the neighbor kids lentil loaf because they're going to beat your kid up. But serve them the soy hot dogs. They'll think that's like a cool political statement. So anyway, my mom gives these to my dad, and he's quite happy with them. And he likes these things. And you know what? I've got 2 vegetarian parents, but only one of them actually knows it. Anyway, so try out different recipes. When you're ready, give it 3 weeks, see if you like it. If you want to, if you've just got that meaty thing, have bacon as veggie bacon or veggie sausage or whatever. They're not fabulous, but they're okay. And they'll help. It's kind of like methadone for you to get you over the meat of the tongue. Now, I want us to get healthy. For us. For you. But I think there's a bigger purpose that I hope that you agree with me about. And that's this. Walk into any school. Anywhere. You see something that's a little scary, and that is that kids today are in the worst shape they've ever been in. And every year, if you look at the 8-year-olds, the 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, things are worse. The rate of diabetes has doubled in the past 10 years. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta say that 1 in 3 kids born since the year 2000, 1 in 3 will develop diabetes in their lifetime. The typical cost in today's dollars for a typical diabetes regimen, I'm talking about 1 or 2 diabetes drugs, plus a cholesterol-lowering drug, plus something for your blood pressure. That's $2,000 to $5,000, depending on whether you buy generics or name brands. One person, 1 year. You might have a good insurance plan, but somebody is paying for that. That's packed into your premiums. Multiply that by 21 million. That's the number of people who have diabetes now. Multiply that by 3 or 4 or 5, which is where we're headed. That's the financial cost. The personal cost is much higher. That's what we have to stop. If you want to walk into that school cafeteria, you start seeing what the reasons are for this. Salisbury steak with gravy, pepperoni pizza. And you look at, well, where's the vegan option here? There isn't one. A kid can say, you know, I'd like to have a high-fiber, low-fat, non-meat meal. It's not there. Because the schools are now used as a pawn in an economic game. When beef prices fall, the government buys up more beef. And they put it in prisons and in schools. When dairy prices fall, the government buys up cheese. I'm talking about tens of millions of dollars worth. They put it in prisons and schools. Nobody thinks our kids need another cheeseburger, but they think that farmers need a little help. What I'm saying is, we can help our farmers without killing our kids. And that kind of thing must stop. But the fact is that we've now harmed our kids. That's what they have learned. And kids, you know this is true, they're as rigid as anybody. When they have learned to eat a certain way, they don't want all kinds of new things in there. They don't even want food to touch each other on the plate. They want things to say exactly the same. This is what we're doing. The way that we change this is first to change our own diet, and secondly to not keep any of this a secret. We've got to share this information as widely as we possibly can. If we don't do this, the future does not look very bright. But if we do, if we change things ourselves, if we try new healthy ways of eating, if we get over the bumps in the road, if we help other people along in the same way, if we collectively, as a team, really work for a healthier diet, we can revolutionize the health of this country. Thank you very much.